Welcome to another edition of Worship and Word Conversations. You are in for a treat this week. Chris, how you feeling, man?
Absolutely. I'm feeling great. No need to pull up the color. Hey, last time the color wheel was murky, but because of the life updates,
Yeah.
it started to get cleared up a little bit, and we ended up in the happy, encouraging, inspired section. I don't even think those are on the color wheel, by the way. So yeah, I'm feeling amazing, man. Especially because of last night, and also because of what's happening today.
Oh, listen, today today's gonna be like historic because we've had guests with us on Worship and Word Conversations, but I feel like today is gonna be something special and shifts what we do on this platform.
Yes. I was thinking about it last night. And I said, you know what? This is what makes it more of a community. This is breaking the fourth wall, so to speak. For those of you, that understand cinematics, the fourth wall is when the person turns from the camera. Well, no, turns towards the camera. It's talking to the audience, or if they're on a stage, because this is usually like during plays where they're like now talking to the audience, who's the viewing people, as if they are a part of the actual show. We breaking the fourth wall today, y'all.
So it's going good. You already know if you're stopping the scroll and you have no idea what's going on, this is Worship and Word Conversations. It's a part of our weekend programming here on the Worship and Word platform. Friday evening is all about testimonies and reading the Bible together and praying for each other. Saturday afternoon is all about conversation. That after dinner, hey, what's going on? Hey, have you ever thought about this sort of conversation? And we invite you to join us in the comment section. It gets absolutely wild and crazy in Jesus' name.
Jesus' name.
We want you to hop in the comment section and hang out with us. You see the Worship and Word family is already doing what they do well. Pam is checking in with us, saying hello, all is well. Praying all is well.
And a side note for Pam, so she won't be able to be on for the entire time. So she did say though that she's just gonna do, the shout out, and then she has to bow out for something else. So
check in.
That's commitment.
I mean, you know how it is. You You got like multiple events on one day, so you just slide by and you show your face, grab a plate. So Pam sliding by, grabbing a plate and headed out. So it's cool to check in with us. Stable in the green room is saying, "Hey, y'all." Now she's itching. She ready. She looks super
ready. She ready.
Back there. Gerald is saying, "What's up? Hello there." Cerise, hey everybody. She's in the green room, ready to get started. Rose says she's excited for today. Rose, we are glad that you are with us. Ebony saying hi again. Ebony, thanks for joining us.
Quick question. Okay. So we are kind of becoming notorious for butchering names. So Ebony, I see the con accento above the E.
What did you just say?
The tilde. That was Spanish. Con accento with accent. So with this, I don't know if it's a tilde, but that accent, is it Ebony or Ebony?
Yeah. Get it. Let us get it straight, because Cerise had to get us straight, right? We type the phonetic spelling in the comment section. That's really, really, really important. I was going over a list of names this week, and I said, no, I'm gonna have to call these people and get the phonetic spelling. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Right. So Don and Elaine are with us, having this conversation. Listen, Aaron is checking in with Richard, Charlie, and little Aaron.
Awesome. Okay.
With the phonetic.
That's right. Thank you so much for that clarification, Ebony.
Yo, Gerald said he coming to the green room real soon.
Hey,
we got space for you. We got space.
That's right. This is an inaugural event.
Those of us who are in the green room, or those of you who are in the green room, Donna says, "Hey, what's up?" Sable and everybody else in the green room. So you'll see them in just a few moments. Angie is saying, "Hey, Worship and Word, man. We're just we're excited, man. We
are vibing. Yeah.
Now, what's challenging about this, Chris, is because there are 6 of us today looking at the comments and the private chat. I just said, like, going back and forth, but it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. So listen, we're last night what did we talk about last night? Because we did a lot of testimonies, praise report.
And then you dropped a super relevant, timely, the joint was powerful. We were in 1 Kings, was it 1 Kings chapter 2 Kings 13. And wow. Yeah. One of the biggest things that I pull from it, I'm not going to spoil the summary. You're going to go ahead and do that because
it's going to be real short because we're ready.
Yeah, they ready. But I think the biggest thing that I pulled away from it was the idea of us compromising for the sake of keeping peace with others. Man, this ties into boundaries. We'll break our own to try to keep other people at bay, because this is what was it Jehoash was doing, right? And you mentioned the context before this chapter, him putting up golden calves in the north and the south so that there wasn't going to be any tension. But by doing that, he was sinning. And yet at the same time, as God is giving them over to an oppressor or to the opposition, he asks for forgiveness, or he asks for mercy. God immediately send someone. We talked about that. Oh man, we talked about that. Sometimes the deliverer doesn't have a name. Sometimes you are that person with no name who isn't recognized per se on this side of the earth, but on the other side, you'll be rewarded. He comes through, he releases them, and yet at the same time, they left some of those Asherah poles up. Made me think about my life, the times that I asked for mercy, and yet I'm still, after having been delivered, leaving up the remnants, the relics of my own sin, the leaving. I'm doing the summary for you. Joseph running out of the house from Potiphar's wife, but then trying to come back asking for my shirt. Hello, tell me y'all done missed it. Some of y'all done left for the comeback. And so anyway, and then for them to have to go back. One of the things though that really hit home for me was you talking about the decisions that we make now is going to impact, because then we looked at Rehoboam II and individuals who now have, in a sense, still continued in that generational sin, that generational poor decision making, disobedience because of their progenitors. Listen, man, it was truth telling. It was sobering, but also encouraging. And I'm pretty sure I missed some stuff, but that's where you come in. You go ahead and
y'all gonna have to just go back and watch last night.
You're right.
Let's go back and watch last night. Go back and watch the previous week. We had a great conversation and just putting things in perspective.
Yeah.
Here's just kind of one nugget. Be careful of moving forward and being limited by what you think you can do.
P, please. So the biggest piece was the repetition.
Yeah.
The repetition ministry of Elisha.
Yeah.
And so the king knew his MO, right? His modus operandi. He knew how he operated. So if he's telling you to do something, it's most likely that you're going to be doing the same thing. Yep. Gerald said it, keep striking the same thing repetitively until God makes one of those ordinary movements miraculous. And we talked about how last night I was... Man, because remember I was telling how murky my wheel was last night, because I'm like, man, I stopped writing in my planner because I felt like I was writing the same stuff over and over every day, and it wasn't clicking. And this king only hit the ground 3 times after Elisha told him, listen, I can just imagine in my mind's eye, Elisha tells him to strike the ground and he hits it once, and Elisha's like, oh no, come on, man, like, you know the deal. So he's like, And then Elisha's like, man, I wish you would have hit it more times than that, because that's just the amount of times that you will beat the opposition. Like it hit home for me as well, that doing the ordinary repetitively until God decides to show up in one of the moments is what. Listen here. You done opened up but they in the green room. So
man, I wish we had time to talk about how we expect God in the extraordinary, but don't believe him in the ordinary. Like, listen, okay, all right. We not do that. We got Willa checking in with us. Good afternoon. See, here we go. Kiana I made an attempt. Please put the phonetic spelling description in the comment section so we can pronounce the name.
I'm a bet it's Kiona.
See, I lean to people who know me know I grew up in the hood, so I'm leaning toward a hood translation. All right, so I'm just where I'm going. All right, people think my name is Pierre. That's not my name. Like that's not what it's. They pronounce the syllable. The emphasis is on different syllables.
Emphasis.
Right. It is. So Rose says, got to keep endurance alive because he will see you through no matter how rough it may get.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. Okay. So she said, she said I pronounced it correctly.
How we know it's you and not me? How we know? How we know? Because it came in sooner, huh?
See, it could have been you. That's true because she didn't put clarity. All right. Cool. All right. So here it is. Y'all. Here we go. We have been having this conversation for the past couple of weeks about this book. This book, Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. It has been an incredible discussion for the past 2 weeks, looking at boundaries, how we deal with boundaries, where we position them, and really navigating for so many of us a difficult conversation that we have not had growing up. For some of us, it's just. Yeah. It's and as we think about our relationships, our marriages, and our parenting, and our friends, and even Chris, our collegiate years, it's tough because we think about how much life would be different had we at least had a conversation.
Yeah.
Not one of those, hey, watch yourself, hey, be careful, like a hard conversation about how we define and how we establish boundaries.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into that a little bit today. All right. So yeah, Pat Graham's in the building. Hanging out with us. All right. So
Kiana said you had it right, by the way. Yeah. Side note. Kiana said you got it right.
All right. So joining us for this conversation about boundaries are our Worship and Word family. You've seen them in the comments at one point or another. And if you haven't seen them in the comments, just trust me. They've been there in the comments. They've been there hanging out with us. Some of them have been on before. And we're going to have this conversation about the myths surrounding boundaries. And this is going to be really, I'm excited. This is going to be really, really
good. They clowning in the back, yo.
Yeah, see, we got to get them out the back. We got to get them front. Okay. So first up, we got to bring up Sable. How you feeling, Sable? You're a Worship and Word regular, like you're an OG, I think you're original.
I think I was here on the first Friday night, and then I've been on like a couple other times.
Yeah, so we're glad that you're with us. Let the people know where you're joining us from.
I'm joining you guys from the DMV. I'm in Maryland. I live around the corner from Pierre.
Is everybody in Maryland? I don't know. Cerise, are you joining us from Maryland?
Yep, I'm in Maryland. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Cerise.
But I mean, some people don't consider my area still in the state. I am in Waldorf, so I'm way. No. That's not me.
That is a different state.
I'm not from Maryland, so yes, you in Maryland. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It's far. We got Monica joining us.
Hi, everybody. I'm joining from Maryland as well.
So so whenever you hear me say Auntie Monica, this is my Auntie Monica. Not my blood auntie, but she my auntie in Jesus' name. Okay. Like, does he really have an Auntie Monica? Yes, there she is. And last but not least, good friend Matthew Matovu, who's hanging out with me.
What's going on?
You're in Maryland.
I'm coming to you. I'm from Maryland proper.
Maryland proper?
Cerise, Waldorf is like
not Maryland proper.
According to Gerald, it's Maryland South.
I stand corrected. I'm not a native either. So.
Oh gosh, you must be mid-state.
Okay. So Yeah. So let's jump into this conversation. We want to invite you, if you're hanging out with us in the comment section, or even if you're watching the replay of this, to drop your comment, even your questions in, and we love to engage them. So let's go this way. Let's go this way, folks, to start it off. Talk to me about how the conversations regarding boundaries in general went in your family growing up.
Whew.
Conversation.
See,
yeah,
put that on the prep.
You know what? The only thing I can think of when it comes to boundaries was more like protect the family, like don't tell your family's business type of thing. That would probably be the only boundary that I could think of that was set in my family. It was like, keep family business stays family business. Don't put family business out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the only one that I could think of that was I would say it's unspoken, but understood by everyone.
I had two comments. One was for like general people, like school. Don't go to school telling those white people everything that's going on. And then at home, if we went around family, don't go telling all of our business. What's in the house stays in the house, and friends.
Right.
I agree. I can rock with that. That's fairly accurate.
We didn't have conversations about boundaries. I grew up in I would say like close-knit family where you call one auntie and then within the hour, all the aunties know. And so there weren't a lot, unless your parents were embarrassed and didn't say nothing, there were not a lot of things that stayed like private. Like if you got in trouble, like say you did something, the whole family knows. Everybody knows. And I mean, and then also in terms of like our church family, we were so close to our church family that they were our family, like family, you know? And so there were really no hard boundaries. Like I feel like in terms of boundaries, just in general, I feel like I had to learn that more when I went to college. Yeah, but at home it was kind of like, oh, everybody come to our house, we all cool. Is it, you pick the people in your circle, so it's not like you have people you trust around. And so because I grew up in that type of environment, it was I had to learn how to set those boundaries because I didn't have to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my mother didn't play. It was a little bit harder to get outside of that. So that's why it takes me a long time to warm up when I first meet you. A long time to connect. Yeah.
I don't remember having a conversation ever. I mean, I did know the rule of you should keep stuff at home, keep your business at home, but I don't even think that was actually said. I don't know how I learned that rule.
I think I agree with Cerise. It was unspoken. I kind of, to piggyback off of what Monica said, I think my mother modeled that whole not putting your business out there too soon. And so growing up watching how she moved, I think I kind of mirrored that, like, just don't get too close too soon. There was always, if I was going over to someone's house, like, don't be too familiar. You know what I mean? No matter how close that friend is, no matter how close you think that friend is, like, don't get too familiar, don't share too much. So I think it was some of those pieces of advice that were given to me that just kind of, it was an unspoken thing. Maybe there might have been a conversation here and there, but I think she modeled that, and I kind of followed along with that.
So talking about modeling things, right? So my mom is an open book. She will tell strangers, like, yeah, when I was paying that one bill, like, she is an open book. My dad is my dad is the, why are you telling our business kind of person? And so I think I got it both ways. And so like I said, like you guys saying, it's not that a conversation was had, but from what you observe your parents do, what I learned as I got older was, okay, I see how this person reacts when you tell them something. And so then I started to compartmentalize. I can tell you this, I can tell you that, I can tell this person that, and it's crazy because as you get older, you get more like guarded.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to tell you as a teenager that I got to see? Like, But as you get older and like get more experiences, I think that there's kind of like a hard shell that builds up where, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like to the point where when we met Pierre and Colleen, it was like, wow, we really like these people. You know, it took us, it was like, we would go over their house and they'd be like, Pierre, we like, why are you asking me for stuff? And I'm like, listen, I went from going in people's fridges to not doing that at all. And so it was like weird to meet people that like we could be comfortable with, and there's like there's no catch, like you know, like
yeah.
I still struggle with that. Oh man, Colleen would always have to tell me. Remember, Pete? Like you ain't no stranger. Like what's going on? It was, but the culture is.
Yeah,
it was never. Especially like our home. It wasn't. It's just different, right? Because you still treat the people who are coming in because they're not a part of your household still as guests. So then when you go out, it's kind of like it's a culture shift. It definitely is. Yeah, it is a different feel. Hey, look, and here's another thing too. We're in a different era because I'm remembering when church used to be open. I guess that used to be a thing. And children's story comes up and the kids are praying at the end. And they be praying some prayers.
Oh yeah,
man.
Our generation that would never. They cut the mic off, like. So it is definitely different.
You learn the truth there, and then Sabbath.
Man.
You already know.
Rose teacher.
From a teenager and older, we were told you can have an outlet with one person at a time. If your business got around, you knew they weren't a true friend.
I don't got time. Listen, when I grew up in a family that was kind of like telephone, and because we're family, we tell each other business. So sometimes I'll say something to my sister, and I don't tell Miguel, but I'm like, I said it already. Like, I feel like you should know, but it's like. But Miguel's like, you never tell me anything. And I'm like, I feel like I told who did I I don't know.
That's funny.
What about the don't talk to adults unless you're spoken to? What about that boundary?
How about it? That caused a lot of problems right there.
I don't know that I had that one.
I did not have that at all.
I don't think I had that one. It was more just like you should know where the respect factor is, and if you don't, you'll get dealt with. But it wasn't like don't speak to adults. It's just like just know you need to have respect or speak respectfully. Like express yourself, but do it with respect. That was so kind of what was communicated.
Yeah, let me share something. So it's very interesting. So we had a Super Bowl Zoom party. When the Super Bowl was on, and we had one of our younger kids, like he's maybe 11, probably something like that, and he's with the rest of the guys. And it was only until this moment that I realized, oh, this is what it was like to be around older guys who are now adults, and they don't necessarily acknowledge everything you say because he's still a kid. They don't want you to think that you're on their level. So he would say stuff, and nobody would respond. It's like, who is it? Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way, by the way. Not in a bad way, but it's like when he would get kind of comfortable saying certain things, that all the other guys joking around, he would say something. It's like, acknowledge it. I'm like, okay, I get it. There's wisdom in that. I think there's balance. There's balance in that because I'm like, I get it now. Now that I'm an adult, I'm like, yeah, okay. We see. So yeah. So it wasn't spoken for me. I don't think anyone told me, but being in that space, because I usually hung around older people when I was younger. Yeah, I kind of got that. Yeah.
Gerald says, "Oh, you were allowed to express yourself."
Yo, man, listen, Gerald. There was a thin line. It was a very.
There was no line for me.
Very, very thin line. Very thin line.
So like, how to feel.
Listen, there's consequences to everything. That was the principle. So you can say something, but just know it may be met with the equal and opposite reaction type of
thing. Get hit on that list.
Something. There's gonna be something. There's gonna be something.
But because I was the youngest and I was the only girl, I was with my mom a lot. So she had nothing but sisters. I mean, she had 4 brothers, I believe. But there was a lot of sisters because it was 13 or 14 of them. I think it's 13 of them. So she had a lot of sisters. But when they had their conversations, if I were to interject, especially if she's on the phone or if I hear like a slight story, and I'm like, Ma, we'd be like this. I might get popped, but other than talking to adults, no, I just couldn't interject into a conversation. I wasn't a part of one of the girls.
So let's fast forward the timeline a little bit. I know we were talking about, you know, how things were growing up for us and conversations that happened or just didn't happen at all about boundaries. Let's look at the context of, you know, being adults now, and let's look at some of these myths that we have been that we said we were going to talk about from the book Boundaries. And the first one that I want us to wrestle with is the myth of, if I set boundaries, I'm being selfish.
Put it on the screen. Put it on the screen.
Man.
How can you gonna call me out for not having the graphic?
Oh, my bad.
It's okay. Somebody type it in the comments.
Oh, okay.
Put that in the comment. Here's the first myth we want to wrestle with. If I set boundaries, I'm being selfish. What's your thoughts, your response to that?
I'm waiting to see if my daughter's going to comment in the comments. Because I actually read that myth to her and she had a very strong response. I was like, you want to get on to talk with me?
Thank you, Sable.
How I used to feel about that myth, I used to believe in it. I was setting boundaries was being selfish. And I say that from a place of being in a toxic marriage for so long. And so now I'm like, oh no, I wasn't being selfish. I was like, those were legitimate requests or asks or expectations we talked about, you know? So now I could say, yeah, I can fully stand on believing that's a myth now. And my daughter has learned from my experience. Like she was like, oh no, seeing you being walked over for so many years. No, it's not selfish to set a boundary. She has put that two to get one and one together. She's put them together.
Man, boundaries, setting yourself boundaries is self-love. If anything, it's the antithesis of being selfish. Like you cannot pour into other people unless you have a cup that's full. So you got to at some point set some boundaries so you can recharge emotionally, physically. You know, sleep is a boundary. Like we all need sleep. I can't stay awake all 24 hours and then expect to function. So it's the same thing with your emotions. Like you got to set those boundaries. Otherwise you're not going to be able to contribute fully to the relationships around you.
Can we talk about how it's being perpetuated?
Let's talk about that.
Within our, from a religious context, you putting on your mask first is selfish.
So we just going deep. We're just going deep.
Let's just go. Let's just go.
Okay. In the water. I thought we were gonna be light for a little bit, but you just okay. Okay.
Because what it was difficult even for me. I think I've been on both sides where you've been in relationships where the boundaries have been set without like we didn't talk about that. We need to. The boundaries change, and it so on that side it's like, oh my God, that's just not even so, that's inconsiderate. But that's you not understanding that if you have been raised in that in that mindset of, well, it's always the other person first, making sure that they are good, or it's this self-sacrificial, which is borderline masochistic mindset that they have to be good or they have to be saved, whatever it is, before I am. I
oh
feel
yeah, you're not a Christian unless you're sacrificing, right?
Right. And so it's like, and I think we have like twisted the persona of Jesus and his character as if he didn't put on the face mask first, the oxygen mask first, then was going out for the last 3 years of the 30 years of his life, getting his oxygen together.
Mercy.
Folks. So can we just talk about that?
I mean, there are plenty of times where Jesus was like, I'm out.
I'm going.
Yo, yeah.
I'm gonna go talk.
Why is that not taught? Why is that not taught as a focus point? Why is it taught? Give a little bit more. Give a little bit more. Give a little bit more.
Because it's better for the organization if you kill yourself.
Say that part again. Can we just say that the Christian culture has perpetuated abuse?
Yes.
Because of it, they, abuse in families. Ongoing abuse from within the church has been perpetuated by that theory of selflessness to the extreme.
To the extreme. Yeah.
I think that's that comes from a theology of works. Like it comes down to like I'm doing therefore I'm worthy, right? So like self-sacrifice is like I'm just going to continue to do and do and do, and Christianity really is simply like there's nothing I can do to be accepted or saved. Like so. I don't think it is unique just to Christianity, Cerise. I think that's just the world we live in. Like, go the extra mile, be a great employee, be a team player. Like it's all these things that we're taught in our society to do extra, give of yourself, and there's nothing for you at the end of the day, right? Like you're left empty.
Most def. I think because people, this myth is it's something that is kind of planted within us. Even if you are a doer, right? If you're there, the people might be talking about the people who are not there. Like, who does she think she is? She at home rested. We're all out here slaving, And so I think that's something. It's kind of like it's planted within us, where as we see, oh man, I'm overwhelmed and I need a break. But I don't want to be selfish. Like, I don't want to let people down, and we give people all this access to our time and ourselves, and there's nothing left for us.
Wow. Yeah.
But like what Matt said, it's self-love.
We're not taught that.
Yep.
Because that is, against the principles of the Bible.
I think that,
I agree to a degree.
I think that for us growing up in church, we kind of end up being the older brother in the prodigal son story, right? Like we're doing all this work, doing all this work. And then when we see someone else coming back to the church or coming to Christ, we're like, well, God, look what I've been doing this whole time. I've been working for you. You know what I'm saying? Why are you having a party for him? Like I've been here. I've been down for the cause. And it's like you end up. And then the father in the story said, yo, everything that I've had is already yours. Like, why are you stressing about somebody else? We end up looking left and right and comparing when it's really like focusing on the message of salvation and acceptance that has nothing to do with what we're doing.
And that just shows it also shows that maybe our motives might not even be right. Like for the older brother who stays and is working in the trenches, like what is your motive? Like, why do you do what you do? Are you doing it because of the love that you have for your father? Is this an outflowing of love? Or are you working for your inheritance? Like which one is it? And so like in those moments, it's also important for us to also like check ourselves to figure out like, okay, why am I so upset?
Why? Yeah.
That this person is not coming to Sabbath school or they don't want to be in the choir. Why am I really upset?
Facts. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Right.
It's easy to get lost. It's easy to get lost in the work. And like, I think some people can be sincere, but sincerely wrong, or become where they're like sincerely wrong. They're just going, they started out sincere and then you become jaded, like, down the road, you just become jaded from experiences that you've had. And now you're completely left or right, whatever.
Auntie Monica, I want to ask you, Monica, you posted something in the comment section. Can you give us some more insight on this? If I set boundaries, I'm protecting myself and our relationship. How does that work?
So I said that because when you set a boundary, it protects our relationship, because if you keep coming across that boundary, it's like you're like punching me every single time. And I'm not going to keep taking punches, you know. And if you don't know it, then who is at fault? It will be me for not setting that boundary. So I need to tell you, okay, this far and this far only, if you know, if we're going to be in relationship with one another. So that's why I say it protects me and the relationship. Yeah,
that's such a good point.
Should
we, and I don't know if this maybe segues into the next one, but what happens when you set a boundary and then you get upset because you set the boundary and things start to happen around you because of it? What is that? Because that's a reality.
Happen positively or negatively?
Negatively. I think the positive things we wouldn't be. We wouldn't. Yeah. But when things, and maybe not negative as much as perhaps doesn't go how you expected, and you weren't ready for the shift, whatever that shift is, or you weren't ready for the type of protection of the relationship, or what, you know, whatever that is.
Say like a relationship ends because you set a boundary, that type of fallout?
It could be that, or maybe I'm just trying to think of examples. Maybe there's less transparency, where, let's say, for instance, you were like an open book. And then you realize, you know, maybe I shouldn't be as open with you, you know, because you got different levels for different boundaries for different people. But then you started to realize that it starts to become reciprocated, where say it was like Miguel's like, yo, you'll never tell me that. Like, what if that happened where you're just like, hold on, how come I didn't know about that? And
that happens naturally.
Right. And then it's like, well, that's the boundary you created, which is reciprocated. You can't be upset at that. How do we deal with that? Is that part of maybe the segue into myth number 2?
I don't think
your own boundaries
2.
Sabotage or okay, you're right. I don't think it's number 2 either.
More like 6.
I think it's a mindset that, and this is sort of a question too, I guess. It's a mindset that if you're going to set boundaries, you have to be willing to accept whatever that fallout is, because your boundary is more important than what comes afterwards.
Yeah.
So you have to be committed to your boundary. If that means you're going to be less transparent, that's fine, because I'm not going to be more transparent with you.
Right. I agree with that. I'm with that.
Yeah. And it's like, you almost have to check your own motives. Like, what is it that I wanted when I set this boundary? What was the purpose of this? You know, and we have to, FOMO is real. Like, you know, like, as we're going to go through the other myths, that is one of the things where it's like, I don't want to burn this bridge, but this is something that I need, you know? And so even if you set a boundary, you also almost have to kind of reprogram yourself and get into that, the swing of that, the habit of that. Especially if you've been living your life just open and people having access to you. Like we were having a conversation at the church, and we were talking about how, like, okay, say your name gets changed. Many of the people that got their name changed in the Bible, right? But they still had to deal with the consequences of what they did before. Like, even though your name is changed, you are still changing, you know? And so we have to, like, we like things to happen instantly sometimes, and it doesn't. Yeah, it's a process. It's like a growing pain for us and the people around us.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I think it's kind of very sticky and complex when you say, like, you set up a boundary, especially around privacy or how much transparency, like you said. So you may say, well, I'm not going to be this transparent because this is this person's personal life, and I don't want to share because I've been entrusted with this information. And so this person takes it as everything is involved in this transparency. I'm like, I'm talking about private situations. Like, you just got a new lipstick and now you don't want to share this with me now. So petty, like, why would you share that with me? Or they got or something like that. So I think it's different levels, and then it becomes, what did you think I was trying to convey with you? I'm just trying to show that I can be confidential, but I can also be transparent when necessary.
Well,
I think if you're going, go ahead, Cerise.
Sorry. I think that would involve communication, which obviously people's communication needs to improve. It has to be in place for you to even express your boundary in the first place. And so in that communication is where those nuances would get cleared up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. Communication. If you're dealing with another person, you have to take audit first. Like Sable said, take audit of yourself as to why you're adjusting that boundary. Figure that out within yourself, and then communicate that clearly and effectively with the other person or people, so that they can understand that. Because if there's no communication, then it almost does the opposite to the relationship. It does the opposite of what you probably intended it to do.
Right.
And of course, sorry.
Make an adjustment to here, and they've adjusted it all the way out here, and it's like, it wasn't that deep. It wasn't.
That's real. Right.
Yeah. But I mean, if you have a friend that is like that and you care about the relationship, like, I think it is important to have a conversation, because it's like, you want your friend to be trustworthy. Like, don't you want me to keep your secrets? Right. And so it's like, you kind of almost have to, check the people you love to let them know, like, hey, look, hey, I'm not trying to harm you. It's just that I know that I would be breaking the trust of someone else by telling you this information. And it's like, and if you can't understand that, then that's not my problem. And then it can also, on the other side, that could also show you that that's someone you actually don't want to associate with at the same time. And maybe you setting up that boundary was actually a really good thing in the nick of time.
I noticed that can be an issue with parents, because parents can get on the phone and start sharing their children's information. And
yes,
bring it back and have to say, that's my child's information, their privacy. I can't then divulge. That's their situation.
And as parents, that's hard. I can tell you, like, raising my teen, I have a circle of friends that's like her aunts, and I have to be careful, because she has said, I'm not sharing it to you because you're going to tell Auntie and Aunt Ray, and I'm like, I can't share that with them. They're like your other mother. It's like talking to me. That's what I feel. But she doesn't feel that. She doesn't want it on, in that circle. She doesn't want to expose. And so as a parent, now this is my generation, because my mother wouldn't care. So as a parent now, I have to respect her boundary, which is a struggle.
So as we transition to number two, because
this is right in line,
right? Yep, it sure is. Bit number 2 is boundaries are a sign of disobedience.
Listen,
some thoughts on that. Boundaries are a sign of disobedience.
So before I got married. Right? So one, I have no issues with my parents talking about telling my business. I'm used to it, and I'm just kind of like, whatever. That's just a part. That's my personality, though. My sister, she's not so much. But I remember before I got married, I used to go up to. I'm in Maryland. Parents are in Jersey. I used to go up to Jersey like almost like every other weekend. Miguel was in New York, so I'm like, I'm seeing y'all, but I'm really coming to see my man. And when we got married and he moved here, my parents were kind of like, we haven't really like seen you in a while. Like, you good? You forgot you got parents? But it's like I had to set up a boundary around my marriage because it's like, well, no, I'm not just one person where I could kind of pick up and go anymore. Yeah. Like, no, it's we're a unit now. And it's like, well, no, I got to pay rent. I'm not like, I don't got a roommate no more. So, it's like, it's like I had to really, really explain to them, like, you don't have as much access to me, and I'm not being like a bad daughter. I still love you. I have less time and less money, less resources and energy to drive to New Jersey.
Boundaries on family is probably the hardest. Boundaries and family, I feel you on that. Usually it's a sign of disobedience to people who don't want to respect your boundaries. Setting a boundary with a parent can be super hard. Like I said, with my daughter and me. But with me and my mom, like, to my mom, I'm her child. She's still trying to raise me. Now I'm almost 50. I'm not 50, but I'm almost 50. And, you know, I'm still her child. She's still trying to correct me, tell me how to raise my daughter. Now, mind you, yes, we know wisdom comes with age and our parents should give advice, but there should be a line. And trying to implement that boundary is, for my mom personally, being transparent, she finds it disrespectful. If I, I'm disrespecting her. She's my mom. Oh, okay, but I have a boundary here. And y'all can put that on a prayer request because there's been times where, like, from me, I've already expressed that I lacked boundaries most of my life. And it was, for my opinion, how I was raised. I wasn't allowed to have boundaries, my own feelings and how to process things. So now trying to implement boundaries, I'm not that great at it. I'm still working on it. So now my boundary is, we don't need to talk. Like, we're not gonna have no conversation. How about that boundary?
I have a question. I have a question, Cerise. When you talk about the fact that you didn't have boundaries growing up between, like, you and your parents, how has that affected your parenting? And, like, this is a question for, like, the other parents here. Like, do you all believe that kids deserve boundaries? Is there an age where it starts to become, like, is that the teen years? Because, you know, things get choppy around that teenage time. So, like, when do you start to allow your children to experience, like, the liberty of having these certain boundaries? Like, how have you navigated that with I don't know, how old is your child?
My daughter's 17. Yeah. So, in my opinion, I raised her way differently, and she should be thankful. So, Cardi, if you're listening, put your comments in. But she, like I said, she probably that she didn't have any boundaries. But I do. Like, when I say my mom would try to tell me how to parent, it's because she didn't always agree with how I was parenting, because I was not parenting like her. My daughter does have a say so. My daughter no longer wants to be in the Pathfinders. Okay, let's talk about this. I'm not going to force you to be in Pathfinders. Let's have a conversation. I just feel like it's just different parenting. Yes, how you was raised can affect your parenting, but I think it's also generational. Like, I remember the things I was forced to do, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to force my child to do this. I want her to have a relationship with Jesus. I'm not going to beat her over the head with it, you know? So
that's good.
So I feel like she's been allowed to have boundaries. Probably, you know, I could do better, but yeah, I feel like I'm very different than how I was raised.
All right, cool.
I think when I think about boundaries with my mom, because she and I were very close, and when it was time for me to decide on the career path, I decided, okay, my major was communications, but somehow I ended up becoming a teacher. Don't ask me how, but I was a teacher in a particular school district. And when she found out I was going to that district, she was like, I don't think so. I didn't follow what she wanted me to do, and I went ahead and did it. And when I didn't get paid that first week that I was supposed to get paid, I didn't even want to tell her, because I didn't want to hear the "I told you so's" and why did you do this? And so I eventually got paid, and it all worked out. But I just felt like me not listening to her advice was like, it took a lot, but I felt like that's where I wanted to be, and I went ahead and did it. So it can be kind of one of those sticking points where you're like, ooh, I don't know, should I listen to my mom about my career, or should I do what I want?
No, I grew up in a space where, you know, my parents, my mom particularly, you know, if I did something positive or, you know, not so great, it was, you know, kind of like Sable, that experience where she's on the phone with my grandma or her sisters talking about whatever that thing is. And sometimes it was a little challenging for me, because I was like, wait, like, house business is supposed to stay in the house, but my house business is leaving the house.
Wow.
Mercy.
All over the place.
But now, where my girls will do something, you know, they got an award or maybe some I'm struggling with as a parent, and I want to call and talk to my mom, and my daughter's looking at me from across the room like,
you're gonna tell my business.
why you so yeah, I resonate with it. It's tough. It's like you're 12 years old. What do you mean? What do you mean? You have an opinion? What do you mean? You don't like
so when is I know that there's not a hard fast age where boundaries become a thing, but like how does one judge that for their kids, right? Is it the child's temperament? Is it age thing? Like how do you navigate?
It's a lot of factors.
Yeah. So
it depends on the whole situation.
Yeah, I don't have no kids. I'm saying this from like Auntie Sable and just kind of growing up and observing the differences between me, my sister, and my cousins. And I think that every child, I feel like your kid will let you know. Like you'll hear the dad, mom, like like I think every kid their temperament, and then it sometimes depends on the age group and stuff like that. There are some kids who don't they don't get embarrassed, like, but then there are other kids like they're like they don't want you to say anything about them or to them, and so I feel like you'll know when it's time, because I feel like your kids will let you know.
Okay. Good point.
They should have choices. So choices create boundaries. So they should have choices as a toddler, like this or that. Like,
that's good.
Let them get used to making choices, and then
and having their own things too.
Yeah, their own things, and this is yours, and you don't have to share it. I mean, God would want you to share it, but you don't have to share it. Like, we can't keep forcing our kids to do everything. We have to give them choices and say, well, if you never share with anyone, you're not going to have a lot of friends. Like, let them know the consequences of their choices. And that just builds depending on age. So what they get to choose and changes with the age.
Yeah. Okay. Because I have 3 boys. So the first thing is I had my son when I was 20, my oldest. So if I were an adult or older, I probably would have set more strict boundaries, but he stayed with me everywhere I went. He was with me. So a lot. But if I had him and I was in a different situation, I probably would have set the boundaries with him first, and then the other 2 would have learned from him. That's ideally how it's supposed to be. But it seemed like with each child, because they were learning from one another, with the second one, it was a little bit more loose. And then, I mean, Aaron did have boundaries. Well, the child who shall remain number 1. I'll just say one. No names, but take it away. Anyway, so the first child, he had somewhat of boundaries, but then the second one, he's learning from the first one. And by the third one, you're just
do whatever.
Just go on.
The first one raised the third one.
Yes.
Okay.
He says, I'm just learning to respect and forward some boundaries with my teenage 13-year-old son, recognizing giving him space to grow into his own person. But that's not easy because I was raised differently.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like my aunts were the ones that helped set up boundaries for me. Like my aunts would see how my parents, because sometimes parents, you're so close to the situation that you're like, sometimes parents overreact a little bit sometimes. And so I noticed growing up, my aunts would be like, no, she deserves this, or no, like you need to listen to what she's saying in this moment. Like I've seen that happen. And so that's another piece of it. It's good to have a village, because sometimes you don't even know that you're infringing on your child's boundaries.
That's a great point.
Especially if you have a child that doesn't, who's quiet.
Speak. Yes.
Yeah.
And what you said, Sable, earlier about it varies with personalities, because some kids get easily embarrassed. And that, I feel like that is my daughter. I said I have 1 daughter. Okay. I birthed 1 daughter. I have like 5 bonus kids who are all young adults now. So I had a hand in raising all of them. So I've seen this from different angles and gender, etc. But with my daughter, she's easily embarrassed, which I find it hard to believe because I'm not very easily embarrassed. So, you know, I'm always projecting myself on her like, this is not even embarrassing. She's like, Mom, it is. I'm like, okay. But as far as her age, I don't know how old she was. Maybe this was about it wasn't 5 years ago. Maybe she was 13, 14-ish. Someone reached out to me about her being on a news program with her and with them. And I was like, yes. I didn't check with her. I did not check with her. I was just like, yes, you want to do this. You know,
we're going to do this.
And you were going,
we're in here.
Like, we're going to do this. We got this. So, because also, like, you know, she's a little entrepreneur and everything. And so I'm like, you know, here I am with the Christian aspect. God gives you opportunities, girl. You need to take
mercy.
So at that point, like, I saw how upset she was. She was like, oh my gosh, I cannot go on TV. At that point now, she did end up doing the show because I was like, I'm sorry, I already committed you, but I will never commit you to something again without checking with you. I just mowed over her.
Such a good mom. My mom still does this, and I am 30. But my no is a stretch. My no is strong. My no is strong. So I know how to say no. I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen. I'm so sorry.
For me, it's when
committed me.
For me, it's when my mom's on the phone and she's like, say hi to so and so, and I'm like, come on, man. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we still doing this?
You don't even know them, right?
I'm gonna say hi, but after the conversation, I'll be like, Mom, why you gotta be like this?
Right.
Just no.
I wonder if we were Jesus's parents when he technically set a boundary when he was left, when the caravan left him, and then they came back and was like, we were looking for you. He was like, hold up, wait a minute, y'all ain't know? Bruh.
Hold up. Let's talk about the wedding at Cana when his mom was just like, no, you gonna give him this wine, okay?
Listen, he was like, woman, but he did it.
He did.
He's like, it's not even my time. Yeah.
He cussed his mama out.
Doesn't matter.
He cussed out.
We're not advocating for cussing out of mamas here.
No, this was Jesus. This Jesus.
With the snake.
Yo, begrudgingly turn the water into wine. Like, all right, fine.
Right.
So, okay, all right. So myth number 3 is if I begin setting boundaries, I will be hurt by others.
Oh boy.
I mean, sometimes when you set up boundaries, people do, like, they feel attacked, so they might attack you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier with there is an adjustment period. When something new comes into the equation, everyone kind of has to get adjusted, and there are going to be some people who can't handle it, you know. And so, but I guess it's personality wise for me, I'm like, if I set this boundary and I know that, and I'm afraid that this person is going to hurt me, then I need to reevaluate that relationship. You know, like, I should not be afraid of you. Yeah. And so then that kind of turns into like a whole different kind of conversation and evaluation for me. If I feel like, wait, why am I so afraid to set this boundary? Like, what is happening, you know?
I agree with Sable 100%. It goes back to the why of everything. Like, you got to look at take an audit of the relationship and yourself. Because like every choice comes with an invoice, right? So it's like you do something's going to happen as a result. So you got to kind of be prepared for what's coming your way, good or bad.
And I think it's a challenge when we make it a law.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right.
Whenever I set boundaries, I will always be hurt by others.
Yeah.
I think that's how we translate it. We try to make it into like a universal law, which makes us apprehensive. And we were talking about earlier, the church piece. A lot of us, especially in the religious context, become overworked and burn out because we think, well, if I tell somebody no,
they'll never ask me again.
Right. I'm going to get hurt or left behind or neglected. So I'll just let them keep, taking all of my energy.
Yeah. But that has happened though. Like I think about the idea for me, when I look at this, I will be hurt by others. For me, especially in the church context, that's translated as abandoned or forgotten.
Or that's broken up with. That's how people stay in bad relationships.
Right. Because it's like, I set the boundary. You now see it as a barrier. So you just like, I'm good. Or you're not as useful as you used to be. For a lot of us that come out of the working church culture, if you ain't really working like you used to, we have no need for you. Or if you, like Pierre said, if you set up that no, we're going to choose somebody else. But that's the only time that we were ever going to reach out to you to begin with, was if we needed something from you. Wow. Same thing in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. I think there's two responsibilities. I think the church has a responsibility to put limits on certain roles.
Yeah.
And the person accepting these roles has a responsibility to say, no, this is enough. Or you've given me like 4 or 5 things to do, and limit themselves to maybe 1 or 2. Because what happens is that person gets burnt out and then leaves. And then all of these things that they were doing, there's now gaps. And then
too many times.
Then you have to reinvent the whole ministry because this person has gotten burnt out and left this gap. And I mean, huge gaps.
Which could have been avoided if they had put boundaries in place.
Right.
So, Auntie Monica, I want to push it just a little bit more and kind of
do it.
How do we navigate this in our families? Because in our families, when we assume roles, and a lot of our families, there is the one person who, no matter what, they're gonna hold it down. They're dependable. You give them one more spinning plate, they're gonna spin it. And sometimes they're standing right next to a person who
not doing anything.
They ain't doing nothing. And they're gonna tell you they ain't gonna do nothing.
I have personally experienced that because my grandmother, the matriarch of the family, when she passed away, it was like the whole house just fell and the family is just scattered. And I don't know how we're going to get it back together. It's been since I think 2012, and we still are trying to figure out how do we come together as a family. The family reunions have never been the same. Thanksgiving has never been the same. So I think it comes to people actually noticing what others are doing and actually stepping in and helping other people, people within the family to do things. So if you see someone always doing the Thanksgiving dinner or whatever it is, stepping in and asking, can I help? Or can my family help? Can we host this year or something like that?
I think sometimes you need to let whatever that system is fail. Sometimes you just gotta let it fall apart. Like you gotta step away and allow the chips fall where they may. As difficult as that may be, whether it's in the family context or the church context, sometimes that needs to happen for people to really see how bad the wound is, right? Like when we're overworking ourselves, you're just putting a Band-Aid on an infection. So you just until you become infected, right? Like, why do that? Just let it fail, open the wound up completely so we can actually start to heal this thing. I mean, that's in theory, I think that's the best thing to do. It's not the easiest thing to do, but sometimes you just gotta allow the system to fail.
But my system has never recuperated. It's complete.
Yeah, that's tough. That's why I say in theory, that's the best thing to do. I don't know.
Monica, that you pick up the torch and spin those 20 plates?
No. Divide the work. If somebody were to actually see what's going on, and we can see the writing on the wall. My grandma was in her 90s.
Yeah.
So you see that she can't do it all. I mean, in her 90s, she wasn't doing it all, but at that point, you see that this is all the roles that she played. How can we prepare that she's not going to be there anymore? Or how can we even agree to come together?
Everybody figure out their talent and pick up one of those roles, right? Line up those
There's
roles.
Another piece to that, though. Like the other piece to that is there are people who don't want to let go of the plates. Like that's something that me and my husband deal with all the time because I want to do everything my way and I want to do it all. And then I'm stressed, and he's like, I tried to help you, but you ain't want my help, And so a lot of times we need to set boundaries, but we don't want to. Like, we want to feel needed. We like when they call us, they depend on us, and all that stuff, And so,
whole different cover.
Who's gonna make that chocolate cake that only she knew how to make, right?
Yeah, but sometimes with the people like that, you kind of have to like let them have a conniption and you help, you know, like if grandma makes this bomb chocolate cake, only grandma know how to make it. We need to find someone that grandma trusts to give the recipe to hand it down to, or someone needs to stand in the kitchen with grandma Kiki while they writing down stuff, you know, on the side.
You know? Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge yeah.
It is.
I think with family, that can be the toughest thing.
I think it boils back to the fact that as the person setting the boundary, it may be seen as disobedience, disrespect, or whatever by the other person, but it goes back to the mindset of you setting the boundary and accepting that other person may see as disrespect. Now, of course, if it's someone you care about, like, you know, Sable pointed out, if it's someone I care about, a relationship I care about, I'm going to take that time to do the communication to say, I'm not intending to disrespect you, but this is still my boundary. And of course, if it's someone you don't care about, then let them be on their way and keep it moving. But it goes also back to what Matthew said about self-love, and not, you know, overly self-loving yourself or some other way someone sees as negative. But if we love ourselves enough to set that boundary, we let people know how they can treat us. And then they will stop burning you out. Because for example, someone asked me to, church positions changed in January or whatever. And someone reached out to me saying, I'm the leader of this, can you help me out? I'll let you know when I need you. I'll leave, let you know a couple weeks in advance. Okay, fine. All right. But then they reached out to me in less time than they said. So I'm left with, do I do a hard stop on my boundary or do I let this slide? I have to be willing to deal with that consequence of whatever my decision is and be okay with it.
Right. Yeah, I love what the comment you put up, P, that Fitz made. I definitely think that people who view boundaries as disobedience is because you're just now holding up a mirror in front of them and causing them to have to look at what they're doing. That is huge. Put that up again. Thank you, because now they have to look at what they're doing and whether what they're doing is disrespectful to you. And people don't like to be told about themselves. We all don't like to be told about ourselves to some degree. So I think that's huge. Yeah,
definitely.
So if you're just kind of figuring out what's going on and you've popped in, we've been having a conversation as it relates to boundaries. We have been discussing some elements of the book Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. A couple of recommendations. One, grab a copy of the book. Two, go back and watch our previous conversations on Worship and Word as we have discussed this. We're wrapping up this conversation real soon. It's flown by an hour and 8 minutes in. Man, the comment section has been literally on fire.
Yeah. Look at Shannon's comment.
Is as many as we can. So we're gonna take. What do y'all think? We can take a couple comments. We can do another myth before we run out of time. We can do a mix of both. What y'all saying?
I want to answer Shannon's question.
Let's go with some comments.
Let's go with some comments. Question up there.
All right. Here we go.
So Shannon says, how do you set boundaries in your marriage when you are the only one doing it all and the other half isn't stepping up to the plate? And she's asking for a friend. I'm sure there are many friends out here that have this question, right? And so I feel like there are a couple reasons that this happens, right? One, it could be like I said before, you might be the person that is like, I want to hold all the plates. I have all the plates. I got it. I don't need your help. And then you might wake up one day and it's like, wait, nobody's helping me. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, hold on. Wait a minute.
You set it up like that, right?
Right. Yeah. And so I don't know necessarily if this wouldn't be necessarily a boundary that you set up between you and the person. It might be a boundary that you set up for yourself in order to take care of yourself, as in, I can't do it all. And so this is my limit, right? And then, and if this has been something that's been going on for years, it's going to take a while to kind of get out of that habit and change the dynamics of the relationship. But it starts with a conversation. Like, it's like, hey, babe, look, your girl's burnt out. Okay. And it's like, there was a time where I could do this all, but I'm at a place now where it's just not happening that way anymore. And so I need a little more help. So what are some things that you think you can help me with, or some things you want me to show you how to do, especially if you're someone who's particular, and then also the other side where I have to learn is, I had to learn that it's okay that my husband does it his way. Right. It's okay, and there are times where I have to leave the room because I don't even want to see the process. I just, it's serious, because I will be like, don't you think you wanna, and so I just leave the room. I put my headphones on, I do something else, because I know that me hovering over him, he's gonna not want to do it anymore. And that's not gonna help me. And so even if it's something, say he does something and he doesn't do it as completely as I want, I let him do his thing. And then when he's done, I go finish, but it's like, you kind of have to choose. What do you want? Do you want it to be done your way, or do you want it to be done? You kind of have to choose. So I think it all just starts with the conversation to see where the person is. Like, are they not helping because they're lazy, or they don't want to do anything? Do they feel like they don't have to? Or are they not helping because you don't let them and they don't want to be in your way?
Donna prophetically answer your thing before you made your comment, because she said it's okay for the cake to be lopsided.
Right.
Mercy.
It's different.
Mercy.
You get your time back.
Mercy.
That in the comments for you.
Yeah. Just pray. Just no, I'm a perfectionist, and so I feel it to my core, and something I have to keep telling myself, done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect, because it's not sustainable at all, So yes, the cake is gonna have to be lopsided, but once you cut it, I guess it's not gonna look lopsided when it's a slice.
Hey man, it all goes in. It's all going in. It's all going in.
I'm still gonna be stressed, but
I am learning. It's so funny because somebody put this up the other day, and I realized I'm similar to Sable. People just operate differently. You have to have the conversation because they're not thinking about things. Somebody put up a post with toilet paper. Is it under or over? What do y'all do? In my mind, I go to, what's the patent? The patents say this. That's me. I'm that person, right? Listen, I'm gonna free somebody today. If you are a loved one or suffering, so if you are an individual, where they use under, they more than likely, if it's under. I'm talking about toilet. If it's under, they more than likely squeeze the toothpaste from the middle of the tube as well. Let me tell y'all something. There is a process and an operation. I went there. There's a process and an operation.
Chris, let me hurt your feelings real quick. let me hurt you real quick, right?
Wow.
So we are. Listen. Okay, so I live in a house where I care about a lot more things than Miguel does. I'm more particular than he is, right? And so at our home, the toilet paper is over. It's over. So, we went to Jamaica and we were in a very tight bathroom, and I put the toilet paper over, and I was having difficulties. It was like too much was coming out, or I couldn't control it because I didn't have space to really do my thing, right? And so I was like, dang nabbit, I gotta turn this toilet paper the other way. And so I turned it where it's under, and it worked so much better for the space. And to the point, Miguel came in the bathroom and was like, why is toilet paper like that? He doesn't care about it, but he's used to it, because that's what I do. So sometimes you can't have it your way.
Right, and you did it from a utilitarian position. It's different. It was a pure user experience design issue.
Mr. Technical. Going technical. It all comes back to my point.
Yeah, it all comes back because you know what? If we go to let's say we hit on boundary number 8. We do the last one. Boundaries are permanent. I'm afraid of burning the bridges. there are things, and the reason why I brought all of that up is because people genuinely, it's not even that they're not considerate of it, or like they're intentionally doing it. That's just how they roll. And it is so difficult for people to, okay, so for me, right, as a user experience designer, you're just like, but y'all don't get that? Like, y'all don't know that A plus B plus C, this is how people work? That's not how people work. And so I realized that if I don't empathize and understand that, yeah, even the boundaries that I might set need to be adjusted and need to be flexible. Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought up that example, because if I don't, then bridges will be burned. You know, if I don't do it versus if I keep it in place. And it's like the reverse. You were talking about Matt, about the antithesis where hold on, self-love, not selfishness, but it's self-love. It's the same thing. If I'm not flexible with these things, I will inevitably be hurting other people or burning those bridges. Maybe not hurting, but burning those bridges.
I haven't, to your point, right? So I do physical therapy. And so I have appointments that are set, right, on my schedule. And if people don't come on time, it bleeds out into other people's treatment time, right? I can only spend a certain amount of time with a patient. And so sometimes I have to set those boundaries if someone is habitually coming late, because otherwise it's going to not just mess up my schedule, but everyone else's treatment is going to be cut short, right? Like that is a perfect analogy for what you just said. Like, if I don't set proper boundaries for these people or have conversations then about why they're being late, you know, and obviously there could be certain, you know, extenuating circumstances, right? But like a conversation needs to be had about why are you coming late all the time? Maybe we adjust your appointment time, right? Like there's flexibility there, but a conversation has to be had. Otherwise, all my other patients who are coming afterwards are going to be affected.
So that brings up a point about boundaries. Is it going to be a toilet paper over or under? Like
mercy.
Severity of it, really.
Mercy.
With this boundary, like maybe it's something so simple as maybe the person.
Facts.
It may be just an etiquette thing, you know. Yes. At the end of the day, right? Or is it something that's going to cause harm of life, like we talked about?
Right. Harm, not hurt. Right.
So then you have to think about those boundaries, because if they're coming late to your sessions, then that's different effect. So then you have to be, you know, very strict with your boundary.
Right.
That other one, you kind of let it go. Like my husband likes a certain way home. Hakuna Matata. The way home, I'm not going to complain the whole time because we're going to get home, right?
About
it and severity.
Yeah, that's a great point that I was thinking about when Saba was answering that comment about the marriage. You have to, again, knowing your boundaries, knowing where your hard, fast boundaries are versus your flexible boundaries, like Chris said. You have to have that communication. So if your husband is just lazy, that's a separate scenario versus maybe you haven't communicated what you need versus you want to just do everything yourself. So let's take out the scenario you want to do everything yourself. Let's take out the scenario that the spouse is lazy. Let's deal with you haven't communicated that you needed help. You haven't communicated what your boundary is. You haven't communicated that you realize you can't do everything because you're getting burnt out. So there goes the communication. But that also goes, now let's live within the boundary. I can only do this. And these are the most important things for me. So I'm going to focus on these. And then this other stuff can't be done. So somebody else in the house needs to do it. I don't know who's going to be. We could talk about it, but it's not going to be me because my boundary has been set. Because I'm tired and I'm not going to die early.
I think a lot of people think 50-50 in marriage too, instead of 100-100. It's all in. We're all in on both sides, not 50-50. So if you take out the dishes in the dishwasher, it's not me to put them in. If you took them out, put them in. Put the dirty dishes in. You know,
you count the passion.
You count the clothes and vacuum. It's all in.
Personal experience. That's personal experience.
Listen, we had a conversation the other day talking about what it means to wash the dishes or clean the kitchen. So in my family, clean the kitchen meant wash dishes, sweep, wipe the counters, right? So when I say I'm going to wash the dishes, I mean I'm going to clean the kitchen, apparently. When my husband says he's going to wash the dishes, he washes the dishes. Yeah. That's it. So in my mind, I'm like, why didn't you clean the kitchen? Like you said, you was gonna wash the dishes, and it's just like it's in the communication. Some people are literal. Some people you grow up in different households. You have different traditions. Like, and so it's like when you're in a marriage, you have to really be open to the idea of getting to know each other, and not just like on a physical level. Like you have to like these little nuances are things you got to talk about too, especially if it bothers you. You know, because it's not that he's being like inconsiderate. It's not like he's trying to hurt me or trying to give me work. It's just that's the way that he communicates. And so now it's not, I can't assume that's what you're going to do. I have to communicate in a clearer way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's through any relationship. Yeah. I asked my daughter, did the dog go out? No. Well, what I mean is take the dog out. I already know the dog went out. Take the dog out. I didn't really want to know if the dog went
out. Yeah, this has been a great and insightful conversation. Unfortunately, man, I wish we could just run this out another, but we gotta wrap this up. But before we do, we would love to just get some final thoughts. Let's just work our way around. So Monica, and we're just gonna work our way. Monica, Sable, Cerise, Matt. Just tell us, just encapsulate from everything that we've talked about, myths 1 through 8. What is one thing that you would love the people on the other side of this screen to take away?
A takeaway would be boundaries are necessary in all aspects of life. And in order to be in relationship with one another, you have to constantly negotiate and renegotiate those boundaries in order to be in good relationship with one another. And be willing to accept another person's boundaries without explanation.
Mm-hmm. Let that marinate.
Oh, wow.
Let that breathe. Let that breathe.
Okay. Without explanation. I guess I'll talk from what I got mostly from the conversation. It's just that boundaries are necessary in terms of like self-love. Sometimes we look at boundaries as something that we're protecting ourselves from other people, but sometimes you kind of have to protect yourself from yourself. Okay. Wow, yeah. Like a lot of times we think that because of these myths, these fears, one of the biggest ones is like, well, what if people need me? What if people need to depend, like people are depending on me? Like I'm the only one that can do this, like that type of thinking. It can cause you to like, we've said a million times, to be burnt out, and so a lot of times we project our fears on others when your boss might be okay with you leaving on time. But we think because, this is the level of work that we've been producing and killing ourselves to do, that when we stop doing that and we decide to leave work on time, that our boss will fire us or they'll notice. Meanwhile, your boss could be wanting you to have work-life balance. Or your boss might not even know all the things that you do, And so we assume a lot of things when it comes to, like, I guess the things that cause us not to set up boundaries. But I would say try to set up some boundaries just so that you can keep yourself sane and, not get burnt out.
Yeah.
Okay. Word. So I was worried about that question, Chris. I'm like, like, could he have prepped me to have a whole summary? But like Monica said, boundaries are for every single part of your life. I realize even amongst this conversation, my thoughts have even grown some more about boundaries. There should be boundaries around your relationship with God. I mean, there's just no area of your life that there shouldn't be some type of boundary. And implementing those boundaries help us to operate in our full potential and according to God's purpose. I feel like it hit me when Sable was talking. If we are operating outside of boundaries, who we think we are? God? Like, God is the only one without boundaries. Like, what? I mean, that, like, it came to me when you were talking. I'm like, oh, we think we can do everything. We the only person who can do that. Like, we're not God. No. Operating in boundaries will have us operate in our full potential, actually.
Right. I don't know how I follow all of those things. I will say that the takeaways I had were from the conversation that kind of got me thinking was the fact that Jesus had boundaries, right? And so if the person who we're striving to be like had boundaries, there's a reason for that. Like he was modeling how we should live. So it's definitely imperative to have boundaries. We all have spheres of influence, and it is very difficult to pour from an empty cup. So those boundaries are going to help us keep our cup full, or at least help not to drain us to the point where it's affecting and fragmenting the relationships that are closest to us.
Oh, those are all good. P, I am going to yield the time over to you. After everybody said what they said, I have to say this is mine. Preferences are not values.
Okay.
But your boundaries should encapsulate both. Just because relationships will break up, friendships will break up because what you've treated as a preference, which can kind of shift, you treat it as something that is like a deal breaker, which would be a value when there's flexibility for that. Boundaries, however, should always be your value system should always encapsulate what your boundaries, how that's going to shape out. But I will also add in there, add your preferences too. Like if we're talking about self-care and self-love, we are not a utilitarian. Well, we should not operate just out of the user experience designer where everything has to be functional. It's supposed to be both, like you're a human being. So your boundaries should also encapsulate the things that you desire, the things that you want, the things that you don't want. And I think that you're doing yourself a disservice. We are doing ourselves a disservice if our boundaries only deal with what we need and don't need. People will see that and they will be able to take advantage of it. Or we would, like Sable was saying, unprotect ourselves. We would damage just our own livelihoods because of encapsulate the whole thing. Your values and your preferences should encompass your boundaries. P, this was great, man. We got to do this again.
Yeah. So here's the great thing about this. And as I'm thinking about, how to sum up things from my perspective, and my summary is this. It's a shame if the only conversation that you have is here in this space, because worship the word is not a replacement for the conversation about the boundaries that you need to have with God for yourself. So, So this is what I need y'all to do. I need y'all to talk about your boundaries. And we're going to do the sign-off screen and hang out a little bit afterwards in the green room. And since y'all
ain't gotta go home.
Since y'all can't hang out with us in the green room.
Y'all ain't gotta go home. Boundaries. That's a beautiful thing.
Man. Hanging out with us, not guests. This is family. This is Worship and Word family. These are the faces you see in the comment section. Now you can put a different face with a name. And yeah, we've enjoyed it. You'll see us do this again real soon. But in the meantime and in between time,
go pray.
Go pray.
Go pray.
Go pray.
The show's done.
I know, I was on it. As I said, he said something about the green room.
Not the green room.